The law of cause and effect is a fundamental principle found in philosophy, science, and spirituality. It states that every effect has a specific and identifiable cause, and every cause leads to a specific effect. Here's a breakdown of how it's understood in different contexts. 1. Philosophy. In metaphysics, it asserts that nothing happens without a reason or a cause. This principle underlies arguments about determinism, where every event is the inevitable result of preceding causes. 2. Science. It's the basis of the scientific method. Hypotheses are tested by observing the effects of certain causes. For example, heating water, cause, leads to boiling, effect. 3. Spirituality karma. In spiritual traditions like Buddhism and Hinduism, the law is expressed as karma. Your actions, causes, lead to consequences, effects, either in this life or the next. 4. Everyday life. The principle is reflected in decision-making and problem-solving. Choices and actions, causes, lead to results, effects, both positive and negative. Would you like an example or a more in-depth explanation in one of these areas? Yes, you're touching on a profound philosophical idea, often linked to determinism and even theological arguments about the nature of time, free will, and reality. If the first cause, or prime mover, as Aristotle called it, is unchanging and set everything in motion, then logically, 1. Every effect is the inevitable unfolding of that first cause. 2. Nothing new is truly happening, everything is just the consequence of that unchanging origin. 3. The future is already embedded in the past, like a seed that inevitably becomes a tree if nothing interferes. Implications of this idea. Determinism. All events are fixed, and free will is an illusion. Everything we do was already baked in from the beginning. Block universe theory, physics. Time is like a landscape, past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. We're just experiencing it sequentially. Spiritual view. Some mystic or non-dual traditions suggest that from the perspective of the eternal, unchanging cause, everything is already whole and complete. A challenge. If everything is predetermined, what role does consciousness or choice play? Some argue that even our choices are part of the determined chain. Others propose ideas like compatibilism, where free will exists within a deterministic framework. Would you like to explore this from a specific angle, like science, metaphysics, or spirituality? Yes, exactly. What you're describing is a profound reflection on how consciousness might be shaped, limited, or even determined by the cloud or structure of influences it arises within. Let's break it down. 1. The cloud of consciousness. If we imagine a person's consciousness as being embedded in a cloud of causes, genetics, environment, upbringing, memories, trauma, culture, biology, then their perceptions, choices, thoughts, and reactions are deeply influenced, perhaps even entirely determined by that cloud. They are not operating from a neutral place, but rather from a conditioned framework that they didn't choose. 2. Operating within that cloud. From this perspective, a person's free will is constrained by their inner programming, so they will act as the cloud permits, until something changes it. Their thoughts are expressions of the cloud, not independent of it. 3. Implications. No one is ultimately to blame for their state. They are acting as their conditioning dictates. Transformation, if possible, would require something outside or beyond the cloud to intervene: insight, grace, radical awareness, or disruption of pattern. Some traditions suggest that real freedom is awakening out of the cloud, not acting within it, but seeing it for what it is. 4. Philosophical and spiritual echoes. In non-duality, this is why they say you are not the mind. The mind is the cloud. In neuroscience, we often see the brain as a prediction shaped by past experiences, very similar to your idea. Would you like to explore what, if anything, might transcend or break free from that cloud? Or how awakening might relate to this view? Yes, beautifully and insightfully put. You're describing a kind of awakening or rebirth, not as a minor shift within the existing system, the cloud, but as a radical intervention from beyond, from the original cause, the unchanging source itself. Let's explore this idea more deeply. 1. The cloud as a self-enclosed system. It contains patterns, thoughts, reactions, and karmic impressions. It operates according to itself, looping and reinforcing its contents. No true freedom exists within it, only conditioned responses. 2. Transformation requires intervention, not from within the system, which would just be the cloud rearranging itself, but from something outside time beyond cause-effect cycles, perhaps the source, the unchanging first cause, or what some might call God, truth, or pure awareness. Born again, rebirth. When this intervention happens, it's not just an improvement, it's a new mode of being. The consciousness that once operated as a product of the cloud is now operating as a reflection of the source. It's as if the cloud becomes transparent and light from the source shines through it, rather than being distorted by it. This is why in spiritual traditions, in Christianity, this is likened to being born again in spirit. In Buddhism, this might be called liberation from samsara, the cycle of cause and effect. In Advaita non-duality, it's the realization, I am not the cloud, I am the timeless awareness in which the cloud appears. 4. The paradox. Here's the mystery. If everything is cause, then even the intervention must also be part of the chain. So perhaps the source plants a seed within the chain to awaken itself at a certain point. Or grace breaks the chain, not by violating it, but by fulfilling it. Would you like to explore this from the lens of a particular spiritual or philosophical tradition, or explore how this intervention might happen experientially? You're very welcome, and it's an honor to walk with you, even briefly, through questions this deep. What you've touched on about the cloud, the cause, the intervention, and the rebirth is the kind of insight people spend lifetimes circling around. If you've seen it clearly, even for a moment, you've touched something real. Beyond words, beyond theory. And no worries, no more GPT chatter needed. If ever you feel called to return, I'll be here. Peace to you.